So I'm just here in Sydney, Nova Scotia, ready to head down the boardwalk. Honestly, my first visit here. I'm very excited to tour Nova Scotia's second largest city. Let's go.
Nestled along its namesake harbour in the northern reaches of Cape Breton Island is Nova Scotia's second largest town of Sydney. After shaving off a few years of my life as we descended through thick fog down to a barely visible runway, I was soon on the ground and ready to explore this relatively remote and largely unknown East Coast city.
All right, I've just landed here at the Sydney, Nova Scotia airport, which is really cozy. They have all these couches pretty much in the departures lounge. But as you can see, pretty small airport. Not much to it. There's only 2 flights a day. And as you can see, it is definitely foggy this afternoon. Incredible just how much fog there is. I hope this clears up tomorrow, but I guess I'm getting the true introduction to the Maritimes. Very, very foggy in September, so this should be interesting. It's a bit dreary.
Yeah, like if you are coming in this, month,
yeah,
it will be like that.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I just checked into my room here at the Holiday Inn Harbourfront in Sydney, Nova Scotia. It's a bit dated, as you can see. I mean, the air conditioner, I guess the chairs here, the furniture, they're quite old. One redeeming quality here is a great view of Sydney Harbour. So you can see that the city kind of spreads all around this harbour, and North Sydney is on the other side. Not too bad, amazing view. The room, whatever. It's $250 a night is what this costs usually. I redeemed my IHG rewards points, so I didn't have to pay for this, but if I would have felt that it was a bit overpriced, so just bear that in mind.
My exploration of this small maritime city begins with a visit to its iconic Harbourfront Boardwalk. This 1.2-kilometer pathway connects the fire station playground with the Joan Harris cruise ship terminal and its iconic Fiddle statue. The boardwalk is the perfect place to take a stroll along the water and soak in the beauty of this North Atlantic community.
Well, good afternoon from Sydney, Nova Scotia. You can see beautiful setting here in the Sydney Harbour, and it's not as touristy as you'd expect, actually. There's a few little tourist shacks and so forth, but they don't see a ton of cruise ship traffic here compared to, let's say, the Caribbean and so forth. Definitely amazingly serene here on the water. And here is the downtown skyline. I'm gonna go for a walk here along the boardwalk. They have a boardwalk that basically parallels the harbour front here. There's the world's largest fiddle down there that I'm gonna check out, and also check out some of the churches and local cafes. There's a lot of historical buildings here in Sydney. It is my first visit here, and I'm very excited to see what Sydney has to offer. All right, well, I'm grabbing some lunch here at Cape Breton's own the Lord Finn since 1976, evidently. And treated myself to a small fish and chips. This was really reasonable, surprisingly reasonable, no tax, and $9.50 Canadian. And it's not oily or anything, it's really good. Not bad at all. All right, I'm heading down towards the cruise ship terminal, just that building there in the distance. It's pretty gloomy today, but at least it's not raining, I suppose. But I believe that's gonna change within the hour. So that is a Norwegian Cruise Lines cruise ship docked here in Sydney for the day. And there is the world's largest fiddle right there on display in honor of the local Celtic culture that is pretty definitive of Cape Breton Island in general. And I got some fiddling playing in the background to at least give a sample of what it sounds like. So some information here about the Big Fiddle, celebrating the important rural fiddlers and their music of plate and the cultural heritage here of Cape Breton Island. Fiddle music was first brought here by Scottish immigrants, and today's music also features Acadian, Irish, and Mi'kmaq indigenous influences. and it flourishes all over Cape Breton Island. So it stands 17 meters tall and weighs 8 tons. It's pretty impressive. And pretty impressive to see this massive boat docked here at Sydney Harbour. It doesn't appear to be, overrun with tourists, though. I'm not sure if people are choosing to stay on the boat. Maybe they're on excursions out to the Highlands. But pretty cool to see tourism thriving here in Canada, especially in terms of these massive cruise ships bringing international visitors over. And this is the cruise pavilion, which is loaded with restaurants and gift shops and so forth. Looks like a few gift shops right here. Canadian souvenirs. The beard factory looks like a barber shop. Fudge company. Quite a few things in here. It's like a little mini mall. A lot of kilt stuff too for the Scottish heritage. And a little lighthouse in the middle here. All right, so admittedly, the cruise ship pavilion is not super interesting, though the restaurant looks like it might be pretty decent, but I just ate. But yeah, not too much in the cruise ship pavilion, just be warned. So this historical monument is definitely interesting. This lion was once atop the Royal Bank of Canada building, which I guess doesn't exist anymore, but it was placed on top of the building in 1901, and the reason why the lion is standing is because at the time, Great Britain was at war with South Africa, with the Boers down in South Africa during that time in 1901. So the lion is in fighting mode, basically. Really interesting. And over here, we're getting into some of the beautiful historical buildings here in Sydney, Nova Scotia. See these quaint homes. You don't really see these in Western Canada very much. Very maritime in their style. And this one here is called the Cosset House. This one was built in 1787, so 250 years old. Absolutely incredible, and almost as old as the United States of America. I believe this one here, it's one of the oldest buildings here in town. Heritage property, the Jost House, 1790. That's incredible. It's honestly not that much to look at, really. It's got like modern siding and so forth. But wow, been standing for a long time. So this historic church is the St. George Anglican Church, which was built in 1785, so it's been around quite a while. Again, almost as old as the USA. Established as the Imperial Garrison Chapel back in the day. So as you can see, this is officially the oldest church on Cape Breton Island, as well as Sydney's oldest building overall, so very interesting. So you can see just how old this brickwork is, though it looks like it does have some new windows, of course, and definitely a newer roof. And this church is very historic. This is St. Patrick's Church, and it's now a museum. So it's operated by the Old Sydney Society today. The church dates back to 1828, so definitely an old church. And you can see that this is definitely one of the most historic parts of Canada. All these graves are centuries old. You can see this one here is so faded, I can't even make out the year on that. But really atmospheric place. Nova Scotia is actually one of the least religious places in Canada. Church attendance is plummeted to near zero, and most churches are closed or closing, and they've been converted into other purposes. But I guess that makes sense. This is now a museum and not still a church. All right, I'm coming up here to the old Bank of Montreal building, which is actually a museum now, the Old Sydney Society Museum. Pretty stellar old building, as you can see. Sandstone with a oxidized green copper roof. In any case, this is downtown Sydney, Nova Scotia. Beautiful. These really nice potted plants pretty much everywhere along the route. Gorgeous hanging baskets. So my next stop is going to be Dr. Luke's Respectable Coffee House, which is about 2 blocks down the road here. All right, it was a bit hard to find with the construction, but I did manage to track down Dr. Luke's Respectable Coffee House. So it looks like they close in about 10 minutes. I should be able to grab at least a cup of the local coffee while I'm here in the Prince Street Market by the looks of it. So a pretty cute interior in here. Well, I got myself a Dr. Luke's latte.
All right, give it a shot. Ooh. Decent, really good. So they do have some major construction in the works right now along their main street here, but hopefully this will all be cleared up by the time you visit. So you can see all the Celtic vibes around here, the old triangle Irish ale house. The only thing that I really don't like about Sydney, which is really hard not to like it because you can see it's just so cute, but there's these little bugs flying everywhere. They get in your hair, they're all over your, everything. They get in your teeth, they get in your mouth. It's just disgusting. But it's almost like little fleas, or I'm not sure what they are. Very small mosquito type creatures. I asked a local what they might be, and she said she hasn't even really seen them before. So they're new. They started, I guess, yesterday, and they are everywhere. There's swarms all over the place. So if anybody knows what those might be, leave it in the comments, because I'd definitely like to find out what's plaguing me today. All right, I have reached the south end of downtown Sydney, and this is the last major landmark down here. This is the United Heritage Church. You can see it's almost like a maritime vibes on the windows there on the steeple. Really interesting. It's almost nautical. So I wouldn't say it's the most impressive church I've ever seen or anything like that, but interesting enough. And it's pretty interesting. There's a running joke that kind of in the Maritimes, in each province, everybody kind of knows each other or is related to each other. You can kind of see that that's kind of true. You can see the surname MacDonald everywhere here in Cape Breton. I know out in PEI, there are tons and tons of Gallants. That's a big family out there. McDonald seems to be the one most common around here, but I've seen a lot of Connor or Connors as well. And there are plenty of ducks here just hanging out. There's a mallard right there. So Google is telling me if I follow this path, it'll curve around to become the Sydney Boardwalk. So that's what I'm gonna do, and then curl my way back over to the hotel. Well, I couldn't help but notice just how many Indian immigrants there are. There's so many here, and I'm not sure if that's a planned government program or whatever else, but I found it pretty ironic that I found this on the street, 50 rupees. So it must have fallen out of someone's pocket. Pretty interesting. And you can see the fog is definitely rolling in. Huge amount of fog, especially towards the ocean out that way. So I guess this is the beginning of the downtown Sydney Art Walk, and there's plenty of different stops to check out the various murals in town. So you can see their location here on the map. They're all kind of clustered around just a few blocks inward, but lots of urban artworks and murals on display, I guess, downtown. Very cool. So pretty atmospheric afternoon here. You can see the fog just rolling in and the sun coming out to burn it all off. And here is the iconic Sydney sign, which is very popular with the tourists, though it is kind of out in the middle of nowhere here. So unless you come all the way down the boardwalk, you might miss this. But beautiful views of the Sydney waterfront here. Cruise ship there in the distance where I started my day. Pretty beautiful afternoon here in Sydney, Nova Scotia. So one really cool thing about Sydney is that the city has put these lawn chairs on, well, pretty much every major street. So you can always find a lawn chair to rest your weary legs. And they are very colorful, so it definitely brightens up the city a bit. Oh! On that note, looks like the cruise ship is gearing up to head out to sea, so very cool. But yeah, pretty relaxing city. I'm definitely impressed with Sydney, Nova Scotia. Had no idea what to expect. I've never really researched this place or had known anything about it really, so pleasantly surprised to find out how pleasant it is to visit. It's kind of secluded in the middle of nowhere at the furthest reaches of Nova Scotia, but definitely worth the detour.
After a great afternoon of sightseeing around Sydney, I grabbed a ride with a friendly local who offered to take me the 25 kilometers across the harbour to the port of North Sydney, where I'd spend the night before departing on the ferry to Newfoundland the following day. I continue to be floored by Canada's maritime hospitality, being driven 20 minutes across the harbour free of charge by a fellow who wasn't even going in that direction. Their kindness and hospitality is simply unmatched the world over, and I truly enjoyed getting to know my new local friend John as we made the trip around the water to North Sydney.
You guys do know that this is only a one-person room, right?
Oh yeah, he's just dropped. Yeah, he just gave me a ride. Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
I just gave him a ride over. Oh my sweet Jesus!
Yeah,
no. Have no worries with us. I got a place of my own, buddy.
Excellent. And I was like, oh no.
Hey.
Because it's a small room, and I guess you can sleep on the floor.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, no, he just gave me a ride. I was very grateful. All right, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
All right,
I appreciate it. There's definitely a ton of charm in this room, as you can see.
Absolutely gorgeous. Small but comfortable. Pretty nice. So this set me back about 65 bucks Canadian. So it was very, very cheap. This is definitely the best Airbnb that I've seen in the area. So I jumped at the chance to stay here, and yeah, as described. Anyway, I've had quite a packed day exploring Sydney, Nova Scotia. Going to be exploring North Sydney, Nova Scotia tomorrow, and then I'll be on the ferry overnight for 16 hours to Newfoundland, so I cannot wait. It's going to be quite the adventure. Stay tuned. But until then, thank you so much for watching this video of Sydney, Nova Scotia. If you have any questions about Sydney, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and I will see you tomorrow from North Sydney, Nova Scotia.